Welcome to episode 189 of Missing Pieces. This is my weekly audio journal podcast where I talk about what I'm up to and what I'm into. And if you've been following the last few weeks' episodes, you know that one thing that I'm up to and into is having a broken foot. And as much as I don't really want to talk about it anymore, it's still a pretty big part of my life. So I thought I'd at least give you an update on this. And it's actually a good one. My foot, as of right now, feels great. In fact, if I had not gone to an actual doctor and had them tell me after getting x-rays that my foot was broken, I wouldn't think that there's anything wrong with it. If I had just stayed home, not saying this was the right thing to do because I definitely should have gone, but if I had just stayed home, put my foot up for a bit with some ice, I think after like 4 or 5 days, maybe a week or so, I think I would have probably been okay. That being said, I'm still wearing my boot as of now, just because I'm not sure exactly what's going on inside my foot. I'm assuming that everything's kind of healing the way it's supposed to, but I don't want to just like throw the boot out and go back to my normal life without talking to the doctor first, which is actually going to be happening a week from now. The day I'm recording this today is December 15th, 2023 at 12:12 p.m. with the perfect time. So we almost got straight 12s across if it wasn't 3 days late. But anyways, I'm going next week, and I'm going to have the discussion. Hopefully they do like x-rays, and they're like, yeah, look at that thing. It's looking great. I want to have the discussion that's like, hey, this whole boot thing, can I just like not wear this anymore? Because honestly, I think any of the pain that I currently have is from wearing the boot. It's very annoying having one of these on, and if you've had one on in the past, you know what I'm talking about. I have been taking it off at nighttime. Like sometimes I'll wake up in the middle of the night. Like he told me I'm supposed to wear it all the time, so I was like, okay, I'll wear this thing. But it's like, it gets annoying. So if I'm laying on the couch, I usually take it off and when I'm laying there because my foot's not doing anything. And I am walking on it, obviously, so I'm putting the weight on it. It's just a matter of like, I guess, keeping it kind of as still as you can. But man, I just want to go back to my normal life because like everything feels good. It feels like everything's just fine. But again, we don't know. We need the experts to tell us that. And I'm going to patiently wait, or maybe not so patiently wait until next Friday so I can find out. So that's something I'm kind of looking forward to, particularly if he's like, yeah, you're fine. I can go into Christmas without it being boot miss. So other than that, this week, I did a lot of video editing. That was a big part of my week. As I mentioned last week, I started getting into editing some Disney vlogs when we went back in May. And we had all this footage, and I was just sitting on my computer taking up an incredible amount of space. And I felt like this was the perfect time, since I'm not doing anything and I'm kind of laid up, to get those videos out. And I've been sprinkling those out every other day for the last week and editing them like crazy. I will say each day was very consistently about 2 to 2.5 hours of footage. And it also very consistently became about a 25-minute video. So if that puts into perspective just how long it takes to make one of these, like if you sit down with, say you had a whole movie, a 2.5-hour movie, and you had to edit that into 25 minutes, it would take you a lot longer than the 2.5 hours you watch the movie, because you have to kind of like find the spots and cut it down and watch it back. And it's like half a day. And that's why I always dread like these vacation videos, is because I know for every day that I have of vacation and all the fun that I have and all the recordings that I do, that it's going to be another day of my life when I go back to reality that I have to sit down and I have to work through all that stuff. But in the end, I have the greatest souvenir that anyone can have, and that is to have this like vlog video of your family enjoying a day that will be remembered forever, not only by you, but enjoyed by thousands of people out in the world. And I think that's pretty darn cool. So it's worth it to do the work that I do. Plus, it's like my job. So there's that. And I enjoy the process too. I've talked about before how I view video editing as essentially being like a sculptor. I'm taking this block, which is this block of video footage, and I'm sculpting it away and like breaking it down until it becomes this beautiful statue, hopefully. Or it could just be a home movie. That's really what it is. But in the end, it's something that I'm proud of, and I'm so happy to have. It's better than any souvenir you could buy at any gift shop is having these videos. So I finished out the editing today, actually. And in other good news, I talked about this last week, I wanted to get back into the swing of things with making videos, and I thought today was the day. I was feeling great. Today just felt like the right day to do it, and I started making a video today, and I actually edited that up too. I had some time on my hands, so I have a 10-minute video already recorded, and we're only halfway through the day, so I'm very excited about that. And I was just watching that too and thinking the same thing. I was like, oh, I'm so glad that we had this morning captured. And I felt bad like the last 2 weeks, essentially like once my foot thing happened, I think December 1st, actually, when I went to the doctor and it was like, well, I'm booted up. That was when I kind of stopped. So I lost 2 weeks. And, you know, it's in the grand scheme of things, it's really nothing, right? It's just, 2 weeks. But there was 2 weeks of memories that I have now, but will I in the future? I love looking back on some of these videos. In fact, I have another video that I think will be coming out on January 11th. That I have a video that I started like making in 2022 on that very same date. And it kind of just like, the video fizzled out towards the end of the day, but it was like Clark and I's morning that day. And I've had this footage sitting on my computer forever. You see the trend here. And I was like, let me just edit that up. And it made a really cute video in a day that I didn't remember, honestly. Like that, like, how many days do you remember going to work or doing the same thing you do every day? You know that you did it, but you don't know like specifics. And in this case, I had that captured. So I thought, oh, let's make a little time capsule. So I already had the video edited, uploaded, and scheduled. So on, I think, again, January 11th, I want to say, that video is just going to go out. A little 2-year time capsule. And I thought, geez, how cool would it be to keep making those? It's like a gift, like in fact, if I were to schedule it out even further, what if I scheduled it out for 10 years out? Clark Man's moving out and all of a sudden this video drops of him at 6 years old or whatever. That'd be kind of neat. But I got that done. So like I'm completely out of debt in editing. In fact, like I mentioned, I've got today's video it's already edited to the point where I'm at right now, which is pretty cool. And that is one like positive thing that's come of this, is that it kind of got me caught up. It got me back on track, because it was just this constant like I was a week behind the whole way through, because I was just making more videos than there were days and time to edit them. So we're in a good spot right now, and that's kind of a little win of the week for me, but I have more. We'll save those for the end. Another thing that happened this week that was probably a good thing is I talked myself down from buying an arcade one-up cabinet. You may know that I'm a video game enthusiast. I love console games mostly, but I do have good memories of going to the arcade back when they existed, when I was a kid and playing video games there. And arcade one-up is kind of, they try to capture that nostalgia of these old video games by making these arcade cabinets that look a lot like the old ones did. They're a little bit smaller. They're like scaled down so they fit in your house, but they always make like all these different cabinets of all these different games. And there was one that came up on sale this week. In fact, it's still on sale right now. So I shouldn't talk too much about it, because I might talk myself into buying it. It's the arcade one-up, a Street Fighter 2 Yoga Flame cabinet. It has Street Fighter 2 and like 13 other games on it, variants of Street Fighter, 2 players, so you could play it together. I do have an arcade cabinet back here. That's an At Games Legends Ultimate, which is incredible, especially considering that I have pretty much every arcade game on it, which is the main reason that I talk myself down on this. This is usually a $500 cabinet, but the price became so good that I was just like tempted. We were at like clearance price, basically. It was down to $300 with Kohl's, plus $60 Kohl's cash to use, I think, the week of December 25th through the 31st, which wouldn't be hard to do there. They sell Lego. And then another $15 in Kohl's cash on top of that. So like $225 is what this thing would be. And I was like, oh, we'd have fun with that. And I was looking at all these videos where people were like modding it, putting in new buttons and sticks and doing all this stuff to it, adding games to it. And I was like, oh, that is really cool, and definitely would be worth that price. But the thing that held me back was one of the 3 obstacles, 3/4 obstacles of any collector. We got space, time, money, wives. Those are the 4. The space one is the one that always gets me. And we're not talking about the space that we love out there with the moon and the stars and the galaxy. We're talking about the space within the Brickatech studio, a place that I'm really just fighting to keep my head above water in, particularly in the storage room. And I was like, okay, if I get this, and this is something that you need to think about when you buy things. And I think Thoreau may have said this. It's much harder to get rid of something than it is to acquire something. Right? Like buying something's easy. What happens though a few years from now when this thing goes kaput, or if I'm just over it, maybe they make a better one. Then I have this giant arcade cabinet sitting down here, like that one, for example. And I'm like, what am I going to do with this thing? And I guess the big thing was, where am I going to put this thing? The Lego hobby has dominated the space down here. I could have a whole arcade if I wasn't into Lego. I've got probably 6 feet of shelving over here. That could be 3 arcade cabinets. I've got 12 feet of tables over here. That could probably be like 6 arcade cabinets, maybe 8. I've got more shelving there. I've got this one back here. You could put another couple arcades there. I have this spot in the middle that you could put them. I mean, I could go wild with those, but it's not where my priorities are. I think Lego has been and always will be my number one hobby. It's something that I just love so much. And I think I probably, and this is going to sound crazy, but I probably get more enjoyment out of looking at these Lego sets that I've built and shared, and the memories and experience that I had with those is probably more valuable to me than having all these different arcade cabinets that take up a lot more space. So that's why I am kind of trending towards the Lego side of things, and that's why instead of buying an arcade one-up cabinet, I bought a Lego arcade cabinet. I don't know if you can see it behind me there if you're watching the video of this. By the way, you can listen to this on Apple Podcasts and Spotify if that suits your fancy. But I ended up getting the Pac-Man arcade cabinet from Lego, which surprisingly, like when you add it up, it was actually about as expensive as the arcade one-up one, which is just bonkers to me. Like we're talking about an actual wooden object that's almost as tall as I am, with a light up marquee, with a control deck for 2 players, with a computer inside of it and a monitor for the same price as this Lego. It's just a little counter one. And it's really cool because it runs Pac-Man. There's this crank on the side, and like there's this belt system inside that runs like the little ghosts and Pac-Man around on it. And you have like all the little things that he eats as he goes around. And it's really cool, but the price was the thing that kind of held me back from it for the longest time. I'm like, man, and that's what I always thought of. I thought, well, I'd rather get an arcade one-up cabinet than that. But now, like as I think about it and my situation here, I think that the fact that I get to spend some time building it and like seeing that process and the building techniques, because there are some really cool things going on inside of it. The fact that I can then put that on my shelf and it's not taking up 6 feet of space in here, and I could still appreciate it in the same way and have this Pac-Man aspect of my studio and like the treasuring games like that, I think is pretty neat. Plus, I ended up working out a thing where I got a double VIP with it, which is 10% back. VIP, or insider's points as they call it these days, is where you get 5% back with Lego, their points, but then you can use them as actual dollars later. They were doing double VIP, so I got 10% back. Plus, Honey was doing $20 off of it. Plus, I got 2 gift with purchases, and then there was another one that I ended up not building. So I listed those on eBay, and then I sold them to my buddy Chris. Not directly, but I put them on eBay, and he bought them. And I sold those for $75 or somewhere near there. It's like 50 some or $60 plus shipping or something like that. So I ended up getting this thing for roughly like $150, which is a little more reasonable. Some of you though that aren't Lego people, you're like, Greg, $150, holy smokes. If you only knew the cost of Lego, $150 doesn't quite go that far in Lego these days. But it's a cool set, and if you watch my other channels, you'll obviously see it as I build it up. I'll be building that soon. I do think this week, though, I'm going to work on my other kind of classic or vintage video game system, and that is the Atari 2600. I bought that a while back. I got a great deal on that without doing all kinds of different maneuvers and stuff. And I'm kind of itching to build that because I have this other project going on right now that I finished up bag 2 of, and that is the Lego BMW motorcycle. It's a Technic set, a very hard one at that. And bag 1, I ended up building, I think last week after I'd done this podcast, and there was one piece left over at the end of it that I was just like, oh no. You don't want to have pieces left over with Technic. Like there's some that they obviously give you as leftovers, but there was 2 of this one, which it was an instant red flag for me. So I went back through the manual, like the flip of shame, as I call it. I just started calling it that right now, by the way. And I saw where it was. And then I looked in the model and I was like, there it is. And there was this temptation for me to just leave it. I was just going to be like, all right, frig it. It doesn't mess up the operation of it. It's not even noticeable. But then in my heart, I knew it wouldn't be right. So I ended up working out a way. I tried taking and dropping it in. That did not work. It fell down through the whole entire block of Technic. So I ended up doing is taking a couple things off the side, and I was able to push a Technic rod out a little bit and then push it back in, and it worked. So I dodged a bullet with it. Bag 2 though, perfection. I took my time. I was very careful. And there's now a stand, and the center of the motorcycle is done. It still doesn't look like a motorcycle necessarily, but the engine and all of the transmission and all that stuff's in there, and that's very exciting. So that's like my build where I just kind of listen to something, whether it be a YouTube video or a podcast, and I put all of my focus into it, and it's super therapeutic for me. Like I just love doing that. There's no distractions. I don't live stream it. I don't do anything other than focus everything that I have onto this build. That being said, that's Technic, and I do like traditional Lego building. So with this arcade one up, if this Lego arcade set here, I was like, I want to get that other one built. I want to like get that off the shelf so this one can kind of take its place because it, first in, first out, ideally. So I want to get started on that. And that's a traditional Lego set that I don't have to worry so much about. It's one of those things where if you do mess up on that, or if you have extra pieces left over, it's a lot easier to go back and fix it. Whereas Technic, because of the way that it's assembled and how sturdy and durable it is, if you miss something, it's a nightmare to go back. So I'm being very careful. But 2 bags down, 40% of the way done. I've got bags 3, 4, and 5, and I'm super excited about bag 3, particularly because it starts looking like a motorcycle at that point. I'm getting like the wheels on, the front and back wheel, and it's not just a block on a stand anymore. It's going to be something. And then I'm going to be getting into a lot of stickers. There are like 75 stickers, maybe more than that actually, that are accompanying this set. So that's going to be kind of sucky later on, but I know when it's done, and this is kind of like a lesson. Not only is it a lesson to make sure you're going to do something right, and really put your attention and focus on doing things the proper way. But this is a focus on playing the long game and working towards something that is going to be awesome later. Like it's the opposite of instant gratification. It's delayed gratification, which is not something most people want in their lives. But for me, it's worth the build up. So that's kind of where I was in Lego. I did buy some other Lego here this week, but it's not for me. It's for another person in our household who had a lengthy Christmas list that was comprised mostly of Lego. And I looked at it and I was like, man, that's a lot of Lego. But then I thought, that's what, we're talking about Clark Man, by the way, that's what he enjoys, just like me. And I think he gets the most time and use out of. So I went through his list. I got some things that he had on there, and then I got some surprises as well, things that I know he'll enjoy. His shopping strategy was kind of just going through like the Target catalog and the Amazon catalog and making a list. And he did go on lego.com and that's where he got most of his stuff from. So I cherry picked some things out of there. I got a few surprises of things, and I think Christmas morning is going to be pretty awesome. There's going to be a lot of Lego happening that day and that week. And that's kind of the strategy going forward. His birthday is on January 2nd, so we kind of do the same thing my parents did for me, which is you get a bunch of stuff and then you split it. So there's some Christmas stuff, there's some birthday stuff. And being that his birthday is basically like right when he goes back to school after Christmas break, the move, I think, and Cody agrees, is to give him the Lego stuff on Christmas. That way he can build that throughout the time that we're off. So that's going to be kind of the thing. And then birthday is, he's doing Star Wars for his birthday. And I actually got some Star Wars stuff unrelated to that. I didn't even know that was going to be his theme. But he's going to have a really great Star Wars birthday with some of the stuff that I got him. And it's going to be a fun time. So I'm just like really looking forward to that. That's kind of like, we're not far off from that. Like looking forward into the future here. We got today's like the last day of the week. He's actually staying at Yammy's this weekend, which I think is going to be, is it safe to assume that there's not a lot of youngsters listening to this? We're going to be wrapping some gifts here this weekend. I'm always hesitant because you don't know who's watching or listening. But we're going to be wrapping Christmas gifts while he's at Yammy's, getting that all taken care of. And then he's got 4 days next week, him and Cody both, 4 days next week. Friday off. That's the day I go to the doctor to be like, release me from my boot. And then we're off on Christmas vacation, baby. And I think we're off probably until Clark's birthday or the day after. So it's going to be a nice run. Probably, how many days is that? Like 10 days, something like that. And it's going to be great. I'm looking forward to it so much. I just want to spend a ton of time with those guys, playing video games, watching movies, eating Christmas cookies, which I have a little margin to do. I want to share another thing. This is like one of my wins of the week here. I'm down like 4 pounds this month. And you know why it is? It's not because I'm exercising, because I'm not. It's because I'm not exercising. With being kind of limited with my mobility and not getting any steps in, which I feel terrible about Roxy Bear, because we used to go for walks all the time. If you watch No Zero Days, you would see us walking constantly. I was like, dude, I got to be careful here, because if I overconsume, if I take in more calories than what I'm expending, which is minimal, I'm going to gain weight, and I don't want that. So I've been very focused on what I've been eating and being very careful with it. And as a result, since the beginning of December, when this happened, 4 pounds down, and we're only halfway through the month. So theoretically, if things continue the way they do, which is going to be hard because again, Cody's going to be baking Christmas cookies in like 2 weeks time, 1 week's time. I might be able to drop 8 pounds this month, which would be incredible. It doesn't get me to my fighting weight that I was hoping for by my birthday, but making progress towards your goal is almost as important as hitting it. Like, just knowing that you're getting there, it feels great. So I'm going to continue doing what I'm doing and just kind of being very thoughtful. Nighttime snacking, minimal. Sodas, minimal. And under eating is the key. And then once I'm bootless, then I can go back to our regularly scheduled routine. So that was kind of a win of the week for me. Another thing that we did this week, in the world of Watch-a-Tech news, we watched Ted Lasso. Cody was getting a lot of recommendations from people at school and her friends that we should watch that. We have Apple TV Plus, which is what it's on. And I have to say, it is a wonderful show. It is, if you don't know what Ted Lasso is, it's about Ted Lasso, of course, who was this American football coach. And I say American because he gets recruited to go over and coach soccer, as we call it, or English football, for this team who's owned by this divorced lady who is essentially trying to run the team into the ground to spite her husband, her ex-husband. So she hires this goofball, like Southern, like just typical, like stereotypical American to come over there and run their soccer team to the ground. But ultimately what ends up happening is he's such a lovable and likable guy that he ends up uplifting everyone on the team. And like, even though they're not successful on the pitch, they're all successful. And you see a lot of character growth with like everybody, including the lady that's trying to screw the team over essentially. And I just really love it. Every episode, when it ends, feels like a feel-good episode, and you feel better about like humanity and people and the characters in the show. And I just need that. So we've been having a lot of fun with Ted Lasso. I do have a decision to make when it comes to Apple TV Plus, though. I saw that they're raising their prices. I signed up and I got 3 months for free because I bought like an iPad or something a while back, and it was $6.99 per month since then. But I saw that they're raising the price to $9.99 per month. No explanation. It's just, we're raising our prices, just like all these companies do. They get into the acquisition phase, then they go into the, we're going to turn the heat up phase, and we're going to make more money than we're going to lose. Like, a few people may leave. And I've decided Apple TV Plus doesn't have enough content for me to stay. Although there are other shows I want to see, like Silo. There's a couple movies like the Tetris movie that I want to see. I want to see For All Mankind. There probably is enough to justify $9.99. So I'm probably going to end up renewing it, but I canceled it when I got the email. I was just bitter. You know, it's like, I'm okay paying you for your service, and I have no problems with that. But the value needs to be there in some way. And I don't feel like I would say they're probably more focused on quality than quantity, whereas I feel like Netflix is the opposite of that. Netflix is like, throw everything at the wall, and we'll have a billion things on here, but nothing that you actually want to watch. That's not necessarily true. Depends on your taste, but I very rarely watch Netflix. So yeah, I just mainly watch YouTube. And one thing that I watch on YouTube, I talked about this last week, since we're still in Watch-a-Tech news. Ted Lasso, though, is good. Season 1, enjoyable. Another thing I like watching, as I mentioned last week, though, is camera reviews, equipment discussions, things like that. And one of my obsessions as of late has been like vintage camcorders, and particularly Sony ones. And I ended up making a little purchase this week. I dodged the $300 arcade one-up, but the thing that I didn't dodge was finding this really cool camcorder. I think it came out in like 2008 or something like that. It's an oldie, and what I intend to do with it, it's a Sony Bloggy, that's the name, but it's an MHS-CM5. And the cool thing about this is it's very small, and it's almost like a vertical filming situation where you flip the screen out on the side, almost like the old 8mm film style cameras where they were kind of vertical like that. And what I'm going to do with this, even though this camera shoots 1080p, I'm going to do something unheard of, and I'm actually going to shoot it at a lower quality. I think it's like 640 by 380, something like that, where instead of it being widescreen, like the video you're watching now, if you're watching this, or any YouTube video that you see, it's going to be like the 4:3 aspect ratio, how your old TV used to be, if you're old enough to remember before widescreens. And I'm going to shoot this in lower quality in that style, just to make it feel like what I'm shooting is like an old home movie. It still records to an SD card. It doesn't record to tape or any of that stuff. It doesn't go that far and go that crazy. But I just thought this would be really fun to play around with. And the price that I got on it was great, because the guy wanted $50 for it. And he had a best offer, and it's like, if someone's gonna have a best offer, of course you're gonna make an offer. And I was like, I don't want to insult him, but I'm gonna see if I can get this for like 35, thinking that he would counter me at like 40, and I'd still be happy with that. So I offered $35, and when he accepted it. It's not here yet, so I'm excited for it to come here. I'm gonna shoot like some really old school looking videos, and this is kind of where I want to go in the world of cinematography, videography. Is I want to shoot videos that are fun and have like character rather than something that looks really good. Like I've been tempted to get like this full frame Panasonic camera, which with the lens altogether would probably be like $2,000. But I'm like, dude, I'm making home movies. I record 90% of what I do with my cell phone. I had people asking me in my Disney videos, like, what are you filming with? My iPhone 14 Pro. Like, that's all it is. And you can literally do anything with that. I do like having some nice cameras, particularly ones that you can make some adjustments on and have like a nice microphone with, but you can do that with almost anything. But what I really love is just like playing around. I love playing with action cameras. I love like little point and shoots. I love like the cameras with the lenses that you put on them and mirrorless cameras. I just love all aspects. Camcorders are so much fun. In fact, I have one of my original cameras that I started making YouTube videos with here. This is a Panasonic HC-V500M. And I was just playing around with this, and I'm just like, oh, this is so much fun. Look how tiny it is. Like, I would still be embarrassed. Like, I'd be way more embarrassed. I thought that was making noise. It was Roxy Bear grunting over there. I'd be way more embarrassed filming with a camcorder in public than I am with my phone. Because when you have a phone, you just kind of look like you're dinking around with your phone like everyone is. And I feel like that's like kind of still like under the radar, even with an action camera and stuff. But you're still kind of like that. But yeah, I just love cameras. It's like my passion. And I like making videos. I like editing these videos, and I like putting them on YouTube, and I like hearing from people that enjoy watching them. So it's just like a match made in heaven. That's what I love to do. And my little expenditure here, I think, might be a gateway to something that could get a little crazier. But I thought $35. I'll make some home movies, and we'll see what it turns into. And it looks like crap, and people might. I mean, if you don't get the gist of it, it's going to look like garbage, right? You're going to be like, why, how did Greg go from 4K to like this crap? But it's going to have character. It's going to have like something behind it, have some spirit. So I'm excited about that. And that's kind of going to be something that goes into next week. So level of excitement going into next week, several, getting through Monday through Thursday, basically, so we can get into Christmas break. Friday, having my appointment so I can get debooted, hopefully. Probably going to get my soul crushed when they tell me I have to wear it for another 3 weeks. And then getting my camera next week. Like, all this is going to happen. Imagine no, I'm not going to film Christmas with that camera, because that would look like, it would just be terrible. And I want to have Christmas like for the future so I can watch it back. I'll just play around, film some chicken action, or, film Roxy or whatever with this, and we'll see how it is. But yeah, I've got a lot to look forward to here. I feel like going into next week, and I feel like this, and also vlogging again too. All of these things are kind of falling into place. So after last week of having my lost week, as I called it, I feel like things are getting back on track, and I'm feeling very, very positive and motivated going forward. So that is my life and my week this week, the things I was into and up to. Let's talk about what you guys had to say from last week's episode. This is listener feedback, starting with One Clever Pig. He should be One Polite Pig, which is, I think, my favorite food that I had in Disney. It's all the memories came back when I was editing up our Disney Springs video, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, I wish I could go back there right now and get that food that we had that very day at the Polite Pig at Disney Springs. But One Clever Pig says, sorry to hear about your foot in the healthcare debacle. As luck would have it, I'm an insurance professional in Canada, and I agree that deductibles on medical insurance are nonsensical. In property and auto insurance, a deductible is somewhat understandable, as you don't want people submitting claims every time a light burns out, as claims are expensive, and that would ultimately make insurance more expensive for all. Healthcare system is not much better in Canada, sadly. Doctor shortage, many years waiting time to get a family doctor, and unreasonable wait times. My city has a 24-hour plus wait time for emergency room visits. That's bizarre. You can go to the emergency room here and get in pretty quickly. You might have to wait a few hours there, but it's going to cost you several $1,000s. So, like, what do? Like, you just burnt your hand on the stove, the skin melted off, and they're like, yeah, we'll get you in tomorrow. You're like, okay, I'll just take my skeleton hand and wrap it up in something. Like, bizarre. A sad state of affairs. Agreed. I'm glad you're giving Clark a great childhood. I was a poor kid who is now trying to give his daughter an awesome childhood, and I can definitely appreciate that. Also tried 2K Drive for about 15 minutes before returning to GT7. Just not for me. Anyhow, Merry Bootmas. I love every aspect of this. Not of this comment, I should say. Not only does he have information, right? Like great information about how the healthcare system in Canada works, which, it would be nice to have everything covered, but you're not painting a good picture here with the availability. That seems to be the problem. Also have something that we can relate to. My parents had no money. I'm definitely better off than my parents were. And I give Clark a life that I would have liked to have as a kid, right? And you're doing the same. And then as far as GT7, obviously incredible video game. But I, my friend, have kind of come back around to 2K Drive. Clark and I we've been doing some Fortniting in the morning. That's something I forgot to mention. We're having a little fun in Fortnite. But we also, when we go into Fortnite, we play a match, we get killed, and we never win. And then we play a little 2K Drive, and I've been having some fun with it. In fact, I was thinking about playing a little bit of it this afternoon on a live stream if I have the time, although it's not looking that way. We're now at 12:42, and I want to make a Lego video showing people what I got done on the BMW, and then like all the things I talked about here. So like I have so much that I want to do. But anyways, Merry Bootmas to you. Thank you for commenting, and I implore you, give another shot to 2K Drive. It's definitely a made for kids game, but it is also very fun to play if you just want to shut your brain off. It's like the opposite of a Lego Technic set. If you just want to shut your brain off and you want to go race a car that turns into a boat, that turns into a four-wheeler, it turns back into a car and shoot missiles at people and chase cows in like the prairies of Big Butte County, you can totally do that. There's my sales pitch. Lego, call me, or 2K, either of you. Merry Boomis. B. Moyer comes back at the next one, says, I understand the frustration with radiology side of your injury. Here we go. This is just like the Pokemon at school debacle. It says, but as a former technologist, there's another side. The techs are trained to do the images, and that's it. The images then go to a radiologist, a specially trained physician who does nothing but read the images. The tech has no official training on diagnosing the images they take. And by the way, thanks for the tip on the Aldi's crab legs. They're amazing. Well, there you go. The crab leg, agreed. My only thing about this whole radiology side of things is that why don't they have a qualified person there, right? Like you can pay somebody to take the photos, whatever. Like you're not going to pay them as much as you're going to pay the person probably reading them or analyzing them. But like have somebody there so you don't send me out with a broken foot and walking on it when I'm not supposed to be, right? Like that to me just seems like it would make sense. It just seems like they're just trying to do the cheapest thing at every way possible. Okay, so I feel like I might have a broken foot. Go see your regular doctor. They look at it, they're like, yeah, I think it might be broken. Go see someone that can actually determine if it's broken. You go see someone to determine if it's broken, but they just take the pictures. And then you have to leave there hobbling out, waiting for those pictures to go to somebody that can actually read them, for your doctor then to call you back and then tell you what the situation is so you can go the next day, if you're lucky, basically living in Canada here, to go see a person that specializes in said injuries. That way you can get treated the right way. Why can't we just cut all the BS? And it's like, I call my doctor and I'm like, hey, I think I might have broken a bone. They're like, okay, let's get you over to a broken bone person and we'll get this looked at. They don't want to waste all these specialists' time, it seems. So like if I had gone in there and they're like, oh, it just looks like a sprained ankle, I understand. Like that makes sense, right? Like you don't want to go to the bone guy who has bones to look at. If it's like, oh, you just rolled your ankle, you dummy. You're going to be fine in 12 hours. Put some ice on it, you goof. But it's when something actually does happen and you get all this runaround that I had to endure, third world problems, right? Like there's people that don't even have the opportunity to go to a doctor. Here I am complaining about having to wait and go through all these different channels. At least it's taken care of. And I'm putting it out there. This is going to age like milk. Next Friday, I'm going to walk out of there with no boot on. I mean, I could do it either way, whether they tell me to or not. I throw a little hissy fit, and I throw my boot against the wall and I run out of there. Then I fall over in the parking lot and I have to go back in because I broke my foot even worse. He's like, told you so. Anyways, thanks for the information on Canada. I hope I didn't offend you. Or not Canada, the radiology side of things. We're still on the Canadian side of people. The radiology side of things. Hope I didn't offend you with what I think should happen because you obviously live that life. Next one comes from JMT, says, wow, you have crappy insurance. I was shocked that they didn't send you directly back to the doctor's office for some kind of initial care after the x-rays. Also grateful, I have good health insurance. Most things I'm just paying a $20 to $25 copay. If I had to pay the first $4,000, I hardly get anything paid for. Well, you're darn right you wouldn't get anything paid for. That's the boat I'm in. And it's wild that our health insurance is crappy. And it's like, this isn't a new occurrence. This happened, I think it was back in like 2014. It was right before Clark was born, because we had to pay for that $4,000 when he was born. It was like terrible timing, but my wife's a part of Pennsylvania Teachers Union, which are very strong. Like Pennsylvania teachers are paid way more than the national average of teachers, particularly the ones that don't have unions. It's just one of those things that maybe in the contract negotiations, like that's one of the concessions they had to make. I will say the school does, I forgot to mention this, the school does pay like $1,200 each year into an account, into that health savings account. So like they'd cover that, which is a nice help, I suppose. But still, it's like, man, every year you're just kind of fighting this uphill battle. Having a copay would be nice. I just think that it should be, like, if we're not going to do a universal health insurance, which will probably never happen because we got too many people that just want to fight back and forth. If you have health insurance and you're paying for health insurance, you should just have health insurance. You should be able, there should be no copays. You should walk in. And again, this could kind of go back to the light bulb thing where it's like, oh, I got a hangnail, I'm going to go into the doctor for that. And they want to avoid that. So they want to give you some incentive to not go, which I guess would be the copay. And I'd be fine with it. Like, I'll pay $50, $25, whatever. But like, if you have health insurance, you should have health insurance. That's all I'm saying, right? It should be no questions asked. Like, how many people, and this is like the bigger issue. I didn't know we were going to get so far into this, but let's get into this. How many people die of stupid stuff because they were afraid or unable to go to the doctor because of the financial side of it? How many people could have had something that would have been easily preventable, but they didn't go because they didn't want to have to pay for it? And then they ended up dying of something silly or something serious. You know, like, oh man, my stomach hurts. I'll be fine. Oh, you have cancer. You found out 2 days before you die. Like, that's the crap. That's the crap. Okay, sorry, I'm getting way into the negative side of things here. Let's get into some more positive side things. From Sam. He says, Greg, you sounded just like my dad when he had to pay our deductible for his major surgery because he literally said the same exact thing. Personally, I'm enjoying the Disney videos quite a bit, so don't worry about being judged by me. I talked about last week being like, when we went to Disney at the time, I was worried about putting those videos out at the time, and it kind of worked out now. But we'd been doing all that traveling, and I just didn't want people being like, oh, you guys, Clark, spoiled. You guys do all this. And, you know, it's true. I did have one person say, you are spoiled. Y'all are spoiled, it said. And I said, my comment was a little snarky, my response. I said, yeah, it's amazing how spoiled you can be when you work your entire adult life towards your goals. That's all I said. Is that snarky, or is that, just being honest? It's amazing how spoiled you can be when you spend your entire life working towards your goals. That's what I've done. I mean, other people do that too, and maybe they don't get to that point. But I've also gotten very lucky. That's what I should have said. I should have said, yeah, we got lucky. We got lucky on YouTube. That's really all it came down to. It's not about working hard or any. Well, I think the phrase "the harder you work, the luckier you get" is true. But I do think that there was some luck in the algorithm potion that YouTube sprinkled all over us. But yeah, I'm lucky to have all those experiences, and to do it at the time that we did with Clark at the age that he was probably the most valuable memories and videos that I'll ever make in my life. Let's continue with Sam's message, though. He says, it's very necessary for my mental health to have some downtime. Take all the downtime you need. Your recovery is important to us. I'll leave you with my entry for a broken foot story. I asked for you guys to give me, like, how did I break my foot? Because it's fallen off the bottom stair. I'm still looking at it back there, traumatized. It's not that exciting. My idea was that I was fighting off some wolves outside that were attacking me in Roxy, and unfortunately, when I was kicking the wolf to its death, and it was a werewolf, by the way, ended up breaking my foot. It was a grown man werewolf with giant claws and blood coming out of its mouth. Red eyes, and it had yellow eyes and green teeth is what it had. Here's his story, though. He says, I was feeding the chickens when all of a sudden they all turned into savages and tried eating me alive. Luckily, I survived, but my left foot took one for the team. Oh, I stomped out the chickens. No, my babies. I worked so hard in raising them. I like it, though. He says, enjoy your week, Greg. We have another story here, too. This is from Easy's Bricks. He says, one day Greg was on a drive on his motorcycle. I like it. As he was driving, he noticed a Mr. Gold minifigure on the road. If you don't know, Mr. Gold is the most valuable Lego minifig there is. So Greg drifted, trying to avoid the rare minifigure, but he accidentally ramped off a car driving by. As he's flying through the air doing front flips, he lands on his foot, causing it to break. I like that story. I would drift into Mr. Gold to try to grab it, like sideways, just grab that thing. Are they still worth a lot of money? I think last time I looked, there was like a couple $1,000s, which is wild. This one, though, this one's very long, and it was written by AI. It was written by a Terminator from the future, submitted by Ronnie. It says, this is a whole story, so buckle in, my friends. Get your popcorn. It says, Greg was a man who loved Lego. Facts. He had a huge collection of Lego sets ranging from Star Wars to Harry Potter. He enjoyed building and displaying them in his living room where he had a special shelf dedicated to his hobby. If only. One day, Greg decided to buy a new Lego set, the Millennium Falcon. He was very excited to build it, as it was one of his favorite ships from the Star Wars franchise. He ordered it online and waited eagerly for it to arrive. The next day, he heard a knock at the door. It was a delivery man holding a large box. Greg signed for it and took it inside. He opened it and saw the Lego set along with a manual and sticker sheet. He smiled and decided to start building it right away. This is where it branches off from reality, because what would have really happened is I would have done all those things, but then it would have went into the backlog for years. But nonetheless, let's continue. It says he cleared some space on his coffee table and spread out the pieces. He followed the instructions carefully, snapping the bricks together. He was having a lot of fun and didn't notice the time passing by. That could happen. After a few hours, he completed the Millennium Falcon. He admired his work, feeling proud of himself. He lifted it up and placed it on the shelf next to his other Lego sets. He stepped back and looked at his collection, feeling satisfied. He decided to take a break and make some coffee. He walked into the kitchen, humming the Star Wars theme song. He didn't see the small Lego piece had fallen off the table and landed on the floor. He stepped on it, feeling a sharp pain in his foot. He lost his balance and fell to the ground, hitting his head on the edge of the table. He groaned and looked at his foot. He saw blood and a broken bone sticking out. This is the most brutal Lego injury ever. He realized he had broken his foot. He reached for his phone, but it was too far away. He started to panic, wondering how he would get help. Oh my God. He shouted for help, hoping someone would hear him, but no one did. He was alone in his apartment with no one to help him. He cursed his luck and his love for Lego. He wished he had never bought the Millennium Falcon. He wondered how he would explain his injury to his friends and family. He lay on the floor in pain and despair, surrounded by Lego pieces. He thought to himself, this is the most epic accident involving Lego he'd ever had. That's what you think as a Lego YouTuber. You're like, oh, I gotta film this. My bone and blood is coming out of my skin. We gotta make a video about this. Wow, imagine that. Hit his head too. Could be a concussion as well. Maybe this was all fabricated in his mind. You just never know. It becomes an unreliable narrator after the concussion happened. But man, building the Millennium Falcon in a few hours, drinking coffee, getting into the build right away. This sounds nothing like me, but it does sound like an epic story. So Ronnie, aka ChatGPT / Bing AI, thank you for your submission. Next and last comment. We had a couple super long ones. I'm going to reply to myself in text form because they're very long. But the next and last one that we'll share here today, being respectful of your time, is from Caleb. It says, hey, Greg. Thank you for the inspiring podcast, as always. This one's actually for Ray, one of the long commenters that I'd like to reply to. But I need to, hopefully Ray's still listening, because I need to connect Caleb and Ray. He says, I live in Nashville, and I'm sure my brother and I would have a blast at Brickfest, so we would happily take those tickets if they're still available. These are tickets that Ray was hoping to give to us, but we can't make it. It's January 6th, Brickfest in Nashville. So hopefully we can make this connection happen. He says, that said, if anyone else expresses any interest in the tickets, please don't hesitate to give them to them instead. We'd certainly appreciate them, but we by no means need them, and I'm sure there are plenty of other people who enjoy them just as much. I've heard nothing from no one. I put it out there on a live stream, in my podcast, in a community post. No one said, I live in the area and want to go, other than you, Caleb, so you are the guy. He says, also figured I'd share my few hospitalization stories for fun. When I was 2, I stepped on a Lego brick and broke. No, that didn't happen. I was jumping up and down on my grandparents' bed at their house while singing 5 Little Monkeys Jumping on the Bed. Then I fell off, didn't bump my head, but broke my arm. You should have bumped your head. Then Mama could have called the doctor, and the doctor said, no more Caleb jumping on the bed. It says, you can tell what book we've read, Clark. In my freshman year in college, I went to the ER after eating a number of Rice Krispie treats without realizing they were peanut butter Rice Krispie treats. Until after a while, my throat started to swell due to my nut allergy. Dang. I was like, man, this dude ate way too many Rice Krispie treats and he's going to die, but the nut allergy will get you first. He says, in my defense, they were very poorly labeled by our food service provider. They just looked like regular Rice Krispie treats, and they tasted fairly similar too. That sucks. Having a nut allergy, I think, may be the worst thing ever. I think about peanut butter and how delicious it is. I think about chocolate-covered peanuts. In fact, I'm looking forward to that because Cody's mom always gets us these chocolate-covered snacks every Christmas. It's like a tradition, like chocolate-covered raisins or chocolate-covered nut mix, and they're glorious. And I'm like, how could I live without those? It'd be like, for me, having I was going to say an addiction, a allergic reaction to pizza. That would be worse than a death sentence to me. But you're probably fine. Like, I would say that if you had an allergy to something like peanuts, the reaction that you have to it probably makes you not want that thing at all. So you could probably find that bearable and live with it. But geez Louise, how about all these injury stories and accident stories? No bueno. But yeah, I need to figure out with Ray, I have Ray's email. I have to figure out how to get your email somehow and then like hook you up with Ray in a way that you can get those tickets from him, because I want to make that happen. I want you to have a good time, and I want you to come back here in episode probably like 194 or something like that. And I want you to tell us all about the time that you had there and how much fun it was. And I think that would make Ray's day as well. It'd make mine at least. But yeah, that's pretty much it for this week, my friends. That was a pretty solid week with still lots more to do. I'm excited for the rest of my day today, and I'm excited for next week. We got all kinds of things happening. I hope you're having a glorious week. If there's anything that you would like to share, related or unrelated to this episode, I'm always open to listener feedback. I know you're probably, I'm not going to make it too long because Greg won't read it. I'm just trying to keep things concise here, and I hope that's okay to some of you commenters that did comment. But I love hearing from you guys, and I read everything, and even the mean ones, which doesn't really happen on this podcast. This is like I would say this would be like the Greg's World /Bricktech super fans, because you'd have to be really invested to be here right now. You'd have to be like fully in. So you guys you're not that type, and I appreciate that. I love doing this. This is a big part of my week I look forward to every week, and I'm just happy that there's people out there that enjoy tuning in. So on that, I hope you have a glorious week this week leading up to Christmas. Next week's episode on the 22nd, I'll record it probably before my appointment, so we won't know the verdict of that, but I'll have a whole nother week of stories hopefully to share with you. Things I avoided buying, things I did buy, the fun I had, the failures I had, it'll all be here. And we'll find you, just like we'll find that, in the next episode of Missing Pieces.